Hello and welcome to Business Today. We have with us Mr. Karl Mehta, Chairman of Quad Investment Network. It's a technology forum for innovator, investor and industry comprising of 4 Indo-Pacific countries, US, Japan, India and Australia. Welcome Mr. Mehta to our studio here in Mumbai. Karl, you have been a serial entrepreneur and investor with over 3 decades of experience in building technology companies. I just want to start with what excited you about this new assignment.
Thanks, Anand, for having me here. Over the past 3 decades, it has been a very fulfilling career to build technology companies in Silicon Valley. But in between, I did work for President Obama in 2012 and 13 as a Presidential Innovation Fellow, and I truly enjoyed building technological innovations as well as policy making at a larger scale. And so when this opportunity came up for Quad, it is an interesting time, especially given everything that's happening in the geopolitical space, to bring in a technological view to that, because as technology is becoming the underpinning for a global competitiveness, national competitiveness, and as well as national interest and national security, both for the United States and its partners, which is the Japan, Australia, and India.
Is there any parallel industry where such an institution existed or such a forum existed?
Well, actually, if you look at some of the groupings, between countries and alliances, Quad is a very unique grouping. It's a partnership. I think both India and the United States won't call it as an alliance, because the word alliance has a different meaning in the diplomatic and foreign relations. So I think we generally see that the governments say Quad as a grouping or as a partnership. And it has traditionally, as you know, historically, Quad was designed and has been, the partnerships has been in place for many years. And the 4 leaders meet every year. But it has been a quadrilateral security dialogue, more around security and defense. I think this year, in the middle of this year, in summer, when the 4 leaders met in Hiroshima, they announced the Quad Investors Network with the realization that in the 21st century, and given the technological pace, the partnerships are now have more consequences on the technological innovations and the technological partnerships, as well as economic cooperation and financial relationships in terms of investment and capital flow. That determines, who is leading in the world and gets a seat on the table to drive global leadership. So this is, in some ways, you're right that it is quite unique that a country-level partnerships that also has a parallel track in terms of we say from the government standpoint, like 1.5 or a 2.0 track, where you bring in the private sector and drive this innovation engine.
So it's like for you treading in an uncharted territory?
You're right. There is no benchmark or a role model that we could follow. But we do kind of, 3 different things, right, in my organization from a mandate standpoint. One is to drive more technological innovation and collaboration from the lens of building a resilient supply chain, given that the backdrop of coming out of COVID and both the United States and India, as well as Australia and Japan, and we've all seen, every country has seen how much we have concentration risk with critical supplies. One of the main mission of my organization is to create that resilient supply chain, particularly with the narrow lens of technology, not everything, because there's lots of commodities that have concentration risk, but we are looking at some specific set of technologies that we can talk about. And we have to drive more technological transfers, technology collaboration in order to move that. The second big piece is capital flows, because you can't have just technology transfers, but you have to actually bring investments to build up the capacity and the capabilities in regions where it does not exist today. So that's the second big pillar. The third area is policy recommendation, because when you look at some of these very large investments and very critical and emerging technologies that has hard to build or hard to scale or requires or has a number of hurdles, the governments have to come together. And just one government out of the 4 Quad nations creating policy, but it's not reciprocated by the other 3 governments, it doesn't help.
Right.
So, an organization like us works with all the 4 governments to ensure that we have, conducive policies in terms of breaking down some of the barriers.
So we'll come to the technology, capital flows, and the policy recommendation, which you said. But tell us the challenges in handling, the four countries, thriving democracies, and everybody has their own priorities and interests. I'm sure it must be very challenging.
Yeah, I mean, just like any large-scale, corporation that you're driving, it has its own challenges. But the great thing is, let me first, talk about what's working, which is that we are the four largest democracies. We have shared values. We are all capitalist countries, and there is a shared interest in terms of the objectives that I mentioned. So that's great. We also have tremendous shared trust. So I would call the four nations as a trusted corridor, and which is kind of like a new thinking that is emerging, that the relationships are now based on a lot of shared values and trust between the countries. So those are all the good things that we have to build upon. The challenges is always typically in this large scale, both government and private sector, is coordination, because you have so many different groups within government. Also, you have different groups, from national security to commerce to external affairs. There's so many different divisions have, or departments have, their own plans, and then the private sector has their own issues that they need to work with. So there's a lot of coordination work. There's a lot of consensus building work that goes into it. And then also there is a lot of convincing work, because investors perceive risks, and in today's globalization, investors and capital will flow with which has the best safety and the highest returns. So when we are asking investors to come in and make new investments or large-scale investments in these areas, we have to also help them to understand that how much we are breaking down some of these barriers.
Right. You mentioned about technology in your initial remark. So which are the focus area you will be focusing, or you are focusing right now?
So we've identified 10 sectors which we consider as our critical technologies, and they are emerging technologies, and we need to get an early handle on them as they're emerging. And if we don't have an early handle on them, then we might redo the same mistakes that we did in the past 30 years, where we would end up having concentration risks. So we have to be proactive and forward thinking and look at the scenarios that we don't repeat our mistakes. So the 10 sectors that we look at, one is semiconductors. Obviously, everyone knows about 65% of concentration risk in one geography. Second is in quantum computing and communications, where there is supply chain, but there is also a coordination work required, because it is large-scale investment, and we don't want quantum technologies to get proliferated in the wrong hands. So we need to do some of the safeguards or guardrails. Third is AI, where you saw President Biden just announced.
Yesterday.
Just yesterday. That's AI. The fourth is clean energy. There's a significant supply chain risks in clean energy, as well as critical minerals. And we have tremendous constraints in the materials processing, if not just on bringing the materials from the digging it from the earth, where Australia is great in terms of minerals and mining. The other sectors that we are looking at is open RAN or mobility, advanced mobility, 5G, 6G. There are standards that are already being formed right now that could hurt the democracies if those standards go in a certain way for 6G or 7G. There is areas in cybersecurity, in biosecurity, or biotech / an overall health security. There is areas in defense tech and space tech, and also in fintech.
Right.
So if you just count some of these would come to approximately about 10 sectors. And we have specific groups now within our organization that is driving progress in each one of these sectors. And we are bringing in both private sector as well as the government leaders from all the four nations to work together in a model on a framework. One of the framework that we have is, we call it as a center of excellence. So in today's world, you don't need physical buildings, but we are building virtual center of excellence where we can bring in the best experts from all the four countries and drive all those three areas that we mentioned in terms of what are the technology transfer opportunities, what are the capital flow or investment opportunities, and what are the policy recommendation opportunities.
I mean, it's too early to ask, but what's the progress on this? I mean, you have already set up groups,
Yes.
like you talked about, or the Center of Excellence is already there?
Yeah. So we are building and launching one after another. We launched just a few months back a Center of Excellence for Quantum Computing and Communications. We overall call it Quantum Information Sciences. We have the Chief Scientist of India, Dr. Sood, who is the Principal Scientific Advisor as our co-chair from India. We have his counterpart, Dr. Kathy Foley, who is the Chief Scientist of Australia. They're both the co-chairs. And then we have equivalent, the top expert from from Japan as well as from the United States, who are co-chairs for this. And now we have brought in about 70 companies, including research labs and some of the government-funded research labs from the 4 countries in quantum information sciences as a part of that ecosystem. And we have task forces that are being defined in 4 areas: quantum computing, quantum communications, quantum sensors, and overall quantum ecosystem to build a quantum-ready workforce in all the 4 countries. So these task forces are now being charged and driven to build up these policy recommendations, find out investment and investment gaps, funding gaps from startups to scale-ups, and then also identify where 4 countries can collaborate in terms of technology transfer, because no one company or no one country can do everything.
Yeah, right.
These spaces are complex technology, they're moving very fast, it requires billions of dollars of investments, and it requires both government involvement as well as private sector.
Right. So what strength each of these countries bring to the table on these 9 identified areas?
That's a great question. So each country has its own unique strength, and as a grouping, that's our we have an enormous opportunity to leverage the strength of each country. Like India, for example, is a great place for talent and skills.
Okay.
It has an unlimited, an infinite supply of great engineers, which are always in demand because we don't have that much supply from Australia. Is a very small country from 25 million population. US has a lot of great talent, but it's always in short supply over there, and same thing is in Japan. Japan has certain technologies in which they have innovation, amazing innovation, from wireless and mobile to even quantum. Same thing, United States is an innovation fountainhead in the world today, with some of the greatest universities, greatest research labs, and also great venture capital ecosystem. So there is a lot of things that we bring from the United States on the table. And Australia, even though it's a smaller country, but it always punches way above their weight when it comes to innovation. Great universities, great R&D labs. In fact, speaking about quantum, they have probably the best quantum technologies ecosystem, from quantum chip design to all the way to quantum communications and quantum security. So what we do is that in each sector, we exactly identify that what are the strengths that each country can bring that can pair and complement with the other countries. So we can move faster together. So better together, faster together.
Right. You talked about the supply chain earlier, and post-COVID we all heard about this China plus one.
Yeah.
What are you hearing when you talk to people in the corporate world?
Yeah, well, the plus one is definitely on the top of the mind, and there has been a now very clear realization that you can't have just one place, put all your eggs in one basket, and have this concentration risk. But I think it's getting now beyond plus one, which is to the capital and the investments will flow into the geographies where both the investors as well as the governments feel that this is a trusted place. So, what I would say is that it's going beyond plus one. There is an enormous opportunity for India, for Vietnam. Vietnam is growing extremely fast in manufacturing and attracting foreign investment, and especially American, US investments. So there is a shift that's happening to move away from places that are felt that are not like-minded.
Right. And other thing, India, if you see, is predominantly a services oriented economy. Our contribution to GDP from manufacturing is around 20%.
Yeah.
And many of these identified areas, if I have to ask you, are they do we find application more in manufacturing or services, AI or?
So look, in technology, the very first opportunity is in just design and development, R&D. And India's investment in R&D is now starting to go up. It has historically was low, In fact, the Prime Minister's office and the Principal Scientific Advisor, Dr. Sood, has they now have a policy on R&D, and there is a fund for national research, labs, very similar to what we have the National Research Foundation in the United States. There is also now a deep tech policy that just came out. So there is a tremendous focus that I'm seeing in India, and you guys see probably more, that there's a focus on R&D. And your specific question about where India can play, which with small manufacturing contribution, I think there is a lot of opportunity for make in India from a design standpoint, first of all.
Okay.
Second, I think from a manufacturing standpoint, the improvement that has happened in logistics and infrastructure, and the fact that Apples of the world and Samsung has demonstrated that they can do large-scale manufacturing here, although its bulk of it is still assembly, but it's getting deeper and deeper, and more value add is happening.
Right.
There is a pull from the entire value chain in the electronics market, in the semiconductor market, or in the overall systems and manufacturing market to source and set up manufacturing in India. So India still has a huge headroom to grow in the manufacturing sector.
Right. Now coming to the AI, you must have heard Sam Altman's comment on this limited capital and the lack of foundational research.
Yeah.
What is your assessment? Because you are dealing with the technocrats.
Yeah. Well, I'm actually just writing a book on AI. It's going to get published and launched in Davos, AI for Digital Public Infrastructure, AI for DPI. This is still in manuscript form. But yeah, look, I think we are still at a very early stage of this, the generative AI.
Yeah, Gen AI.
AI has been around for 25 years as a neural networks. But what the Gen AI is doing, and then even this general artificial intelligence, AGI, artificial general intelligence, right? So we're at a very early stage. These LLM models that OpenAI and Sam Altman's company has built, there are a number of other open source models that countries like India can take those models. And there are many contributors from India in that open source. So it's not that India is just a taker, but it's also a giver and contributor. And there are ways to take these LLM models and build on it with our own languages, because in India there is 22 plus languages, right? And you can feed all of that, every book, every magazine, everything that is written in those languages, whether it is Kannada or Tamil or Gujarati or Marathi, you can put all that stuff, train those models in our own languages, and then you can build as good a platform as OpenAI. So I don't agree with Sam's comment that that the train has left the platform and India cannot compete with OpenAI. There's still a lot of opportunity for both, and already Dr. Sood and I think the government of India has already said somewhere, I read that there is a plan to build an India stack, just like we have the India stack here in terms of the UPI and the Aadhaar. There is an opportunity for the India stack to build up its own AGI, its own generative AI. Right.
And you had earlier said about the talent as one of the big strengths of India. But many of this talent leaves also. The IITians.
Well, that was happening, maybe until recently. But we are seeing now a reverse trend. We are seeing that more and more new graduates from IITs and good institutions, they are seeing a lot more opportunity happening in India, and they want to stay back and they want to participate in that growth. And there is even more opportunity in India than maybe United States. In my generation, 30 years back, I had to go to US in order to build it up in my technology career. But I'm seeing now that people want to stay back here because there are opportunities to build the next big thing. Like, I have friends like, the Bhavish Agarwals of the world who built Ola, and Vijay Shekhar Sharma who built Paytm. These guys are amazing icons, and they are the role models now for the new generation young people, that if Vijay Shekhar Sharma can build an amazing multi-billion Paytm and Bhavish can build a multi-billion Ola, they can also build. I'm seeing that renewed confidence in the young people today in India, that they can build it right here in India and they don't have to go outside India.
Right. And again, coming back to the AI, I was reading one of the comment of Arundhati Bhattacharya, the former chairman of SBI, and currently she's the chairperson for Salesforce. And she said about the use of cloud technology in Indian businesses is not yet widespread. This is what she said. Is the cloud first step, for building AI kind of a model? And you have founded a company on the cloud side.
Yeah, I mean, cloud is a fundamental infrastructure because when you are building AI models, you are building with massive set of data, and it's impossible for you to host that into your own data center because you need a very large scale cloud infrastructure. The reason why OpenAI has done a deal with Microsoft is to get access to that Azure and be able to bring down the cost of computing and the storage. So yes, she's right that cloud is a critical infrastructure. India's use of cloud has been less because first of all, India didn't have as many data centers within India. Now that's changing.
Right.
I think just in the last couple of years, we've seen a number of large data centers come up. Not just the big three guys.
At the big players, Adani's and Ambani.
Yeah, Adani's of the world are building big data centers. Reliance is building big data centers, already have it. CFI has some big data centers. But the three big cloud providers, Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud, as well as AWS, they all have now the data centers. So you will see that the enterprises now breaking their data room within their buildings and moving and shifting to the cloud. So that's just happening now.
Okay. Another idea, I was thinking about, should government take a lead in having some kind of a national fund, or should they take a lead on the Gen AI side?
Yeah, so
for a developing country like India.
No, absolutely, and government could, provide incentives to, or even support an open source program through its national research policy, or provide research grants, because India has amazing R&D labs. India has amazing institutions like the IITs. Just like IIT Madras has done groundbreaking work in mobile, and they've built India's own 5G stack, which is amazing, in partnership with TCS and a bunch of other R&D institutions, so that India is not dependent on other foreign providers, which we may not, from a national security standpoint, may not like. Same thing can absolutely happen, and the opportunity is now. And I'm sure that the government is looking into it. I'm going to Delhi from here and have a number of meetings planned with the Indian government, and I'm sure that this topic will come up. We also have a very amazing AI conference where I'm giving a keynote on Friday, as well as I'm giving a master class on AI, and I will be making those recommendations as well.
Okay. In terms of the regulation, is your forum also working on the regulation side for
we
AI?
provide our inputs and from an business community as well as investment community standpoint, and a number of that inputs finds its way to the governments in terms of the certain safeguards and guardrails that we just saw from the executive order that President Biden made.
Right. And any, maybe your view on the concern on the AI side, especially on the job front?
Well, I am of the view that it's not going to destroy jobs, but it will only create more jobs. It's a controversy, or it's a debate out there. There is definitely a legitimate concern that AI is going to destroy jobs. Because a lot of things will get automated, particularly in BPO industry and many other repetitive tasks. You don't need human, and you can automate. AI can do things faster. But if we look at the last 50 years, and you look at waves and waves after new innovation, what technology has done is that it has always created more jobs than it has moved off. There is a short-term effect. So think about it as like when ATMs came, we had the same concern that the teller jobs will go away. The banking sector has only expanded, and now you have ATMs. You still have some tellers, but you don't need so many tellers because people can just withdraw cash without having a human. But those people have now been absorbed in doing better things in the bank, rather relationship building, wealth management, and stuff like that. Value-added stuff. Same thing happens in computers. When they came in, it moved away a lot of repetitive tasks. So you can go after one after another of the technological innovation. I think we are going to follow the exact same pattern. A lot of repetitive tasks, you can give it to AI, and you move those people. And in fact, I believe that AI, a better way of looking at it is that it's augmented intelligence and artificial intelligence. That's a better way to look at that acronym. And if every human, I think the main challenge that we have from a job creation or from a government standpoint is to ensure that AI is accessible. And that's the core thesis of my book here, is that AI should not create more income divide, because we have seen that there is growing income inequality and wealth inequality that is happening. AI is such a big force and such a huge innovation like electricity, that if it is not accessible to everyone, it can create more wealth divide. more income divide. Right?
Right,
It's kind of like electricity. People who have access to electricity were able to increase their income because they could study in the nights, they could go to school and they got education. And people who don't have electricity even today, small villages, their income is not grown because they don't even have access to electricity.
Right,
So we are making all the cases, and if you read the executive order of President Biden, one of the areas of it's a very broad executive order, very comprehensive.
Yeah, even I
but
said
one of the areas that they have focused on is also that access to AI technology
Right.
through schools, colleges, universities, so that people are not left behind. And if you have that, then you have augmented intelligence. Your cognitive capacity increases, your productivity goes up. And if the productivity is a key factor of GDP growth, see, if you have 6% in India, we're looking at 6%, 6.5% GDP growth. But if you get with AI and augmented intelligence for your workforce in India, and you get even 2% increased productivity, that's a direct bonus adder on the
Right.
top of your 6%.
Right.
Now imagine trying to drive without AI. If you have to drive just GDP from 6 to 8%, that's a lot of work. But instead, you put in AI to your workforce and increase productivity, you're automatically at 8%.
Right.
So it's a net actually a wealth creator.
Right. So apart from the US, which are the other countries which are racing ahead in AI?
I mean, there's a lot of good research work that's coming out of UK, from Australia.
We keep hearing about China also.
China has done tremendous strides in it, but it's a little less it's not that transparent. What we do see that use of AI is actually in a productive, and that's my personal viewpoint, the way that they have increased the surveillance on their people, and they have absolutely taken away the privacy. So it is actually the negative consequences of AI that we are worried about, which is security, which is privacy. That is a significant concern in the democracies. Right? And you see that in President Biden's executive order, that we want to ensure that our citizens and their personal data is not getting used or misused by the companies and private companies that hurts our safety and our security and our privacy.
Right, right. And you earlier said about the short-term impact of AI, and you mentioned BPO.
Yeah.
Which are the other 2-3 sectors? Again, I'm from the short term.
Yes.
Where
Well, you're seeing, for example, we had and I have a home also in Los Angeles, and you saw the strike of the Hollywood writers.
Okay.
And you see the direct impact of AI, because what is happening is that every great novel and books are now fed into AI.
What about media?
Well, media, I mean, there's a lot of writing stuff that, media organizations, you don't have to write a whole article. If you have the key points and you give it today to OpenAI or, Bard or any one of their competitor, it will write up the whole article. So,
Right.
So, but, those people who were writing and spending time, days and days of writing a 2-page or a 5-page, would now spend time on something more. They can do more research and things like that. So there are anything that has a task that just requires combining information and regenerating information. Those jobs are going to start to go away, and repetitive tasks.
Right. And one last question on this cybersecurity. I think in February this year I was reading that you launched a public campaign, Quad Cyber Challenge. Tell us more about that.
So I think, look, cybersecurity is of tremendous consequence and of tremendous concern, because the next big war can be a bloodless war, and can be just play out completely in the cyberspace. So a lot of countries are looking at not just cybersecurity from a defense, but also from an offense standpoint. Right? And so it becomes of a great concern from a national security. There is, some of the best ways to get the smartest talent out is through either grant challenges or prizes and things like that. So one of the initiative is to get the best of our cybersecurity intelligence and our experts to come together and solve problems. And so that was the initiative.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Karl, for all the information, and we'll keep tracking your work at the Quiet Investment Network.
Thanks for having me. Thank you, Anand.
Thank you.
Take care.
If you like the video, do like, comment, share and subscribe.